Hi, welcome back to Wilde Speculations. I'm Daniel. Tonight, I'm talking about Critical Role Campaign 3, Episode 21, Fight at the Museum. A clever name for the episode, especially for fans of Night at the Museum film series. Off the bat, Ashley's missing. And I was like, I thought we went to pre-recorded so this didn't have to happen. But we learned that it's because she got a positive COVID test, but is asymptomatic. Matt, after the recap, has them roll initiative. And no one does particularly well on the initiative roll. And I could see Travis starting to get worried. So much for do not disturb me. But Imogen, her first turn, casts Command, Grovel. And we see what a powerful maneuver that was when the golems take their opportunity attacks against Laudna as she runs, dropping her each one hit. So that's one turn to drop one of them, because then they have two attacks. One of the things that kind of surprised me, because Marisha made such a big deal of it previously, is she just went down. She didn't do her roll to stay conscious ability. Nothing. She just, okay, I drop. I was like, oh, all right then. Although I'm not sure what Marisha was doing. I think she may have been talking to Ashley. Because she was back and forth on her phone through that. But Ashton, after raging and breaking the glass, baits the golem's opportunity attacks. And it is reiterated for everybody. We're getting out of here. And everyone's running through the room that they know. And Laura, again, with Ashley's character in her hands, or in somebody's hands, it's like, Matt, you can't kill her, she's not here. And Matt's like, I have no control over that. Which is great. But she wasn't gonna. I don't think Fern was going to die. Even if she got hit both those times, Mister could have teleported her out instead of Laudna. But when Ashton gets to the door and can't open it, Travis losing his shit and is like, Matt, what? You can't! Was so much fun. Yeah, Travis is, from that moment until I think probably the first how do you want to do this, Travis was in a panic. And, like, Taliesin spelled it out oh so well when he went back in, and there seemed to be some confusion. And he's like, we got to go back in that room or we're all going to die. Because had they tried to stay in that room and batter the door down, the golems coming in would have triggered those traps because they're large-sized creatures. So them just coming in, boom. So his assessment was correct. And when he did the action math, and he's like, they get 6 attacks. And Travis is like, 6? And he's like, yeah, attack, 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 opportunity attack from each one. And they're like, well, if you trigger it, he's like, yeah, if we trigger it. But, like, if they're moving around, none of them have mobile, none of them are swashbucklers. And you can't be using your action in those tight quarters with monsters that do that much damage, taking the dodge action and hoping somebody else will do damage. It just wouldn't work. And even Laudna does Eldritch Blast instead of dashing, which was good. Also, a potential thing that Marisha may have been planning on the phone was the magnets. And when she says, I tossed the magnets to Chetney. And Matt's like, okay, I'm curious where this is going. Was a great moment. Because it's born out of that looking at your character sheet, looking at your gear. What do I have that is pertinent to this moment? Sort of Hail Mary ideas that players come up with, which is the best. Because it's usually something you never would have thought of. And largely because, DM, probably passive perceptions, armor class, movement speeds, maybe stats and skill, trained skills. And over the course, you probably even know their cantrips, just because they're casting cantrips all the time. But you don't always know what's in their inventory, even though either through a shopping episode or loot, you gave them everything on their character sheet. You just never remember it. So to see that come out and then for them to hide, in this case, for them to hide the item they're trying to get out of here with the magnets to the roof of FCG's mouth. One of the things that happened in this episode that hasn't happened yet, and it's surprised all of the players, Mr. Teleporting. And I wonder if Laura asked Ashley if she could do that, or should. Because Ashley has yet to ever do that with Mr. And Laura is... I don't want anyone to think I'm smearing Laura here, because I'm not. But Laura is becoming quite the rules lawyer lately in this campaign, and really reading the abilities and spells and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if Mr. finally teleporting is because Laura was in the driver's seat in this episode. FCG as a backpack was interesting. And I don't know. So Matt usually goes rules as written that when you're carrying somebody, you're at half speed. And Chetney's speed's 25. I don't think he had the movement to jump out of that room and attack. Because he would have had a dash to get the movement. His strength is high enough that he could, in theory, jump that distance, the 15 feet. And I was thinking in the moment about Ashton just becoming a vault, where he just sort of sets his shoulders and dips his head and lets Chetney just sort of grab onto his traps and hop over his head as part of the jump. Matt described almost that anyway. But yeah, I was like, that would have been cool. And also might have lowered the DC. Because Chetney would have already gotten advantage. So maybe Matt would have lowered the DC or given him an extra D4 or something. Although lowering the DC is a little easier and more more controllable as the DM, whereas giving them a D4, there's less of a chance of them falling into the range than if you just lowered the DC. Just because with that D4, they could roll a 1 or a 2. And if that's not high enough, then it's not high enough. Orem using, I think his favorite maneuver is for sure goading attack. And I do wish that the ability was designed no saving throw. You do it, they have disadvantage to attack anyone other than you. And it is a common refrain in criticisms against 5e that there's no really good tank abilities. There's no pulling aggro, as it were. So to have the one ability that Orem has require a saving throw, be gated behind a saving throw, kind of sucks. But the golem grapples and then throws Orem. And Taliesin is like, well, they have disadvantage to attack anyone other than Orem. And Matt made the right call, and it's the one I would have made too. The attack includes Orem, so no disadvantage. Was so good. Almost drops Imogen, and this is another moment where Travis lost his shit because he was afraid either Orem and or Imogen were going to end up in that room where they didn't know where the traps were. So good. And oddly enough, the EXU team are the ones who got the "how do you want to do this" of the fight. Fern with Scorching Rays, and Orem with his sword. I'm trying to determine if Matt was doing that, if they took fire damage, they were vulnerable to the next weapon attack. Or if it was just describing what would happen to Clay with a fire attack. But I thought that was an interesting possibility. That after they take fire damage in the next turn, within the next turn, the next weapon attack, they're vulnerable to that damage, rather than being resistant to non-magical weapons, which we see with Orem versus Ashton's attacks. But with both golems dead, there's a debate that is had. Should we put a fake earring down and play dead, and the bloodthirsty werewolf in the room is like, well, no, because they're just going to come in and kill all of us. We're going to play dead, and then they're going to make us dead. Now, last week, I talked about how many spell slots they had. And I said that FCG was out of his third level spells because he had cast Dispel Magic. And he cast Aura of Vitality, which is a third level spell. And then I think Taliesin asks, as they're still debating what options to use, and yes, Rose, the hilariously ridiculous options, really, to use. He says, no, because I healed everybody. And I was like, you shouldn't have been able to do that anyway. But this is one of those cases where, did it ultimately matter? No. Because they're not using gritty healing, so any amount of hit points that are restored that don't take a hit die to heal doesn't matter. And they didn't fight the other team on the other side, getting out of town. And nothing happened when they camped. So, does it ultimately matter that he got a second, third level spell that day? Not really. If something else had happened, if the confrontation with the other team had gone differently, would I be saying something else? Possibly. But it's one of those things. If he isn't marking those spell slots off as he's using them, D&D Beyond doesn't know that you spent something if you don't mark it down. So one of the things that I thought is kind of interesting and funny is between Ashley, Laura, and Marisha, they have now turned Fern into a Kinder. Always stealing shit and always seeming to have that one thing you need. So, yeah, I probably would have asked to see the inventory. But, you know, if you get to be a Kinder for free, I guess be a Kinder for free. And I know Scott would agree with that sentiment. Yeah, the endless bag of whatever I need, yeah. Let's see. Laudna's crafting quality continues. Sub 10 on her crafting check for her forgery. And then Imogen volunteers to be the subject in a Milgram experiment. Having abandoned the idea of playing possum, they say, well, let's try to get a short rest in. And Laura apologizes to Sam, well, sorry you spent that spell slot, which we come back to. Maybe he didn't. But they don't get the short rest. 10 minutes later, they hear sound in the other room. And Laura sets off the trap. And then sets it off again. And then again. And, like, between Taliesin and Travis, do it again, do it again. And Taliesin saying, they can leave anytime they want. I don't know if she really gave them time to leave. But there you go. But they felt, well, I was going to say they felt bad, but I don't think they really felt bad. I think Imogen felt bad. And Chetney was just like, we can finish him off right now. Just go out there and take care of him. And Ashton feels kind of bad. And I think he transferred that because suddenly, after almost killing the other team, decides that, you know, this was unfair. These weren't supposed to be deadly encounters. I mean, we've sort of been on that evil campaign from the beginning, really. Virtually from the beginning. So, glad to have company. And we, yeah, anyway. Spare the dying and 1 cure wounds applied. They chat about when Ashton basically says, you know, fuck this guy, is sort of in that parlay scene toward the end. And they don't confirm that they have it. And Ashton and Chetney both kind of intimidate them. And then Laudna lies to them, saying that they're still going to go look, that they are not done. So, interesting. They get the immovable rod back thanks to Oram. Chetney's ever-smoking bottle is gone. He's rather upset about that. But yeah, again, Ashton's being upset about the deadly traps, I think, is more transference, because like the pit trap was where things really turned, and I don't know. I seem to have been wrong in my assessment that this was prove yourself and that they would be hired. I mean, it may in fact be that for the woman who hired them, whose name I'm blanking on. It may be her worthiness test. But yeah. They determine through Ashton's fuck this guy, I want to hurt him rant. They're going to steal the journal, because that's the one object that almost everyone is like, ooh, that's big deal kind of thing. Chetney does steal it and flips through the first few pages, and Gianna Hexam, thank you, yes. Yes. And all I could think about when they found out, when he turns to the end when they're camping, and he sees it's all basically the same kind of phrases, and ... I was just thinking of the it's a fake GIF from DS9 when they try to present a forged meeting to the Romulans. We get some actual Hishari lore dropped. And Matt's wording piqued my interest, because a cult leader in the desert, charismatic leader, is the actual phrase that Matt used. It just reminded me of Dune. And I'm wondering how much of the unappeared Matt Colville character put that into Exandria. Because Colville was supposed to appear on the show, and because stuff happened, he didn't. So I wonder, and Colville's a big Dune fan. I think he just posted another video about Dune, which would make, I think, 3 or 4 hours of Dune explainer video that he's put out on YouTube. So yeah, just the way that that verbiage, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. But Ashton continues his quest for revenge, and Chetney says, well, his bedroom, is upstairs. I know where it is. And they don't make it to the bedroom because they stop in the office, and Ashton picks the lock, which was, he got a 29. I'm assuming the DC was 25, that the other team did not break the lock on. And he finds papers and glasses. And, oh yeah, we're taking those. So his, potentially his bonus earned and his own personal revenge satisfied, they leave. And, we also get a Campaign 2 callback in the office with the Serpent's Mask being the Yuan-Ti cult that protects the temple to Uk'otoa. But they go to break, and after break, we learn that it's not photography, as they claim their prize. I don't know if I would want to be on the wall, because presumably only thieves are going to be on that wall. So, yeah, I don't know. Although I think Matt did describe them that they were pictured from the back. So, maybe slightly less incriminating. But they camp out in the bog. The morning after, finally, FCG removes Curse and decides to cast Detect Thoughts and dive deep without permission, which upsets Imogen. She casts Sending to Hexam, and FCG identifies the glasses as Eyes of Charming, and they confirm that the paperwork is enchanted, which got Ashton all kinds of excited. Chetney goes to Not Forgotten with Orem, and I think Travis had a particular idea of how that might go. And Matt, rather than let him sort of dance around it, got right to it by mentioning, I'm from Uthadern. Which I think made Travis had to throw out his plan. Because I think using player knowledge, he wanted to talk to her, but he didn't. I think he was gonna work around. He had a series of dialogue trees in his head on how to get there, I think. But he fails his persuasion check to convince her that he hates Ultgar as well. And there's a tense withdrawal as Orem, equal parts, the fuck is happening, and are we cool? Gets him out of there and says, we're going to talk about your claw thing with everybody. And because they fast travel back to Drusar, that conversation isn't actually had on the road. So we'll see how that goes. I wouldn't say it surprised me, Rose, just because when Travis was quietly losing his mind, when he wasn't in the scene, and she mentioned Ultgar to Laudna and Ashton, I knew something was going to happen. I'm wondering, like much of Chetney's beef with Santa from the one shot has been brought over in that his boss asked him to make something other than wood toys, and that's where the bitterness started. And I think Matt has taken the idea that there's a toy maker who drives his apprentices and subordinates to working long hours, and all the fact that she was charging only 8 silver for an art piece shows how little she values her work. So I think that's part. And Chetney did nicely say, "No, gold. That's a gold piece." So yeah, but it got me thinking. Like, Matt has very kindly worked with Travis to put a dwarf, apparently, even though being from Uthadern could have been an elf, or maybe there's an elf behind it, a jolly old elf that could be behind all of it and is even older and been more entrenched than Ultgar. That wouldn't surprise me either. And it would be absolutely hilarious. But a worldwide toy cartel, which we kind of see even a little bit with sp.y.sh-n in the letters. And all I could think about was the Meat Man and Scanlan and his daughter and Lionel, because I think Lionel was still part of that, but their furniture forgery business that they were running and the whole racket that he was doing there. Got to be connected in some way. I don't know how exactly, but there's something there. We'll wait to see how it goes. There's also the possibility that with extraplanar stuff happening on Exandria right now, and the upcoming release of Spelljammer, that the jolly old elf that may be the driving force behind Ultgar's operation could be extraplanar, and that his toys are not to go over, not to be sent out over Exandria, but to be sent off-world. So, an interesting possibility. I don't think it will be that. Not really, but gotta say it. Gotta speculate on it. Oh, before I get too far ahead of the fast travel, getting back, the enchanted paperwork. They figure out if it's read in extremely cold environment or with extreme cold applied to it, it can be read, which is an interesting twist because most of the time, anyone who's familiar with ancient ciphers, it would be an acid and heat would produce the ink. So it was a nice twist and protection against metagaming that Matt made it cold. Also something about revenge and a best served cold. Anyway, it is very cold in space. But the professor Astanti tells them about a group that he once belonged to, the Grim Verity, borderline blasphemous organization, and I think the name is supposed to be the Grim Truth, or have that connotation, since verity, the Latin root veritas, truth, is part of it. So I think it's people probably investigating the Age of Arcanum and the lies, possibly, of the deities, of their clergy. So, another hint that the Divine Gate is the target again. Or still. We also learn that he is spying on her, Hexam, and had information on crates that Ashton struggles to remember something about, but they're important, and he saw them the night that he was hurt. So he keeps that, and the bit of embarrassing proof that Hexam was after all of his treasures, seemingly all of them, are forgeries. The spear, the broken beacon, the journal. If the prized possessions are faked, likely all of it is. And the Ashfern, is that the ship? Is that the ship name? Another sail on the ship. Ashton tries to plant the glasses on Fern. And at first, everyone thought that he was trying to pick her pocket and take something. And he's like, "Oh, don't you guys feel bad?" And I think Laura perfectly channeled Ashley when Ashton's house is like, now I know you won't do anything too bad with them or something like that. Don't get into too much trouble. And, oh, I will. Perfect. So we'll see if she even bothered. Well, I was going to say, technically with the glasses, she doesn't have to prepare Charm Person anymore. But if she prepares it, she's got more castings of it. So, and I think she'll just keep doing it. But yeah, so good, Rose. I think Laura did a good job the whole episode, doing her an approximation of Fern. But that one at the end was just perfect. So good. The largest inter-party conflict happens when they get back to Dressar. As FCG, as they're like, this feels wrong returning all of these horses. Well, we should just kill one. Are they going to remember us? No. Horses don't have souls. And the argument that engenders. And what do you see when you look into their eyes? Enlarged ocular thing. So good. I love Sam's delivery in that moment. The breakdown and like, well, their brain is small compared to their body size. It's nothing like you guys. And Liam's CSI joke moment. Oh, you're normally very perceptive, but I think this might be your blind spot. I wonder if that would have come up or if he would have delivered it exactly that way if Ashley had been there. Because, like, part of me thinks that the reason why it was in his brain is because Ashley wasn't there and it was like she was filming Blind Spot. And that's usually when all those jokes would happen. They rarely happened when Ashley was on actually there. So, yeah, I do wonder that. We level up, and Travis is like, should I just roll for both and then I'll choose one? And Matt's like, yeah, that's fine. And it was like, ooh. And Chetney is aiming for Rogue at some point. I think he does go Rogue. I don't remember the 6th level of Blood Hunter being particularly awe-inspiring. And against that 1st level of Rogue, it's just... it's very hard to beat the 1st level of Rogue. Expertise, sneak attack, thieves can't. He'll probably get another tool proficiency, because multi-classing Rogue, you still get thieves tools, and he already has thieves tools proficient, so he may get another toolkit, maybe forgery. That'd be interesting if Chetney gets forgery kit proficiency. Oh, the other meta comedy bit of the episode. Laura succumbing to referring to Imogen as Laudna was amazing. And I laughed probably too hard at that. But so good. I think I have to give Laura MVP this episode, just because the grovel right off the bat, and then she tried to keep them down. Taking those attacks out of the encounter was just life-saving, like literally life-saving. Because they probably would have dropped 2 others probably in that fight. And yes, Rose, and because she was playing Fern in the RP segments. And also doing her best to channel her while in the combat. Even though she is too afraid to roll dice every now and then. She doesn't want the responsibility of that. I think she enjoys the secondary RP possibilities, but I don't think she is too afraid that something bad's going to happen, and she's too much of a dice goblin or dragon, might be more appropriate, that she just doesn't know how to deal with the universe pressure, where Liam is just like, it doesn't matter, just roll. She internalizes her dice, what they give. Maybe too much, but it's entertaining, at least. I think next episode we have the rewards from Hexam, and possibly another job. And depending on timing, you say that this person that I think stole my golem didn't steal my golem. Can you get it back for me? But it doesn't necessarily have to be Hexam that engages them to go against Ring Boy. The name's gone. Anyway, but I think we're going to have some political fallout. They've been gone a while. Whatever happened with the mine clearing that they sort of sparked, I think we're going to find out about that. The Green Seers will probably make an appearance, or we'll give them a message, because they said you can leave a message with oh man, now I don't remember if they told them the inn to leave a message at the inn, or anyway, they told them how to get a hold of them. So I think we'll hear from them in some capacity. And I think, barring any new quests that prop up in Drusar, Orem and Imogen are going to be pushing them all to head out to Eos. And of course, that will we'll get there via FCG's backstory. The wild card that I don't know is, will they stop by the Loomis house? I don't know if they've uncovered a level of significance to warrant going back and bothering her. It may be they talk to the anger and not the mother. I could see that. Just because he was there, and now they have some information that they could ask pointed questions of him that are relevant to what Orem is looking for. And if that happens, maybe we will get a little more teased out of Orem as to whether or not Keyleth was actually the target or not, or if it was his husband, or someone else entirely in the village. Although it's possible that the Hishari connection is also relevant. "20 years ago was when Vox Machina opened the gateway. It's possible this charismatic leader was a Fey creature. What's more than that, well, because I was going to say, it's possible it could have been the Traveler. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think so. But I think it could definitely be another Fey in the same vein. Or maybe a different cult leader. Maybe Matt is going to show what Jester could have been, if that makes sense. Where if Jester had built up a cult, and like, because all Matt said is that they were wiped out or disappeared. So it's possible that it was the Traveler, and they all went to the island, or died trying to get there, or when they were having the ceremony at the island, and the Moonweaver's angel came down and was moments away from smiting Artagan and his followers, that it went differently somewhere else. So I think the Hishari angle is going to play into is going to connect Ashton with Imogen and Orem and their quest. And we may get a peek at that this coming episode. But until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you guys next week.